let's put a bow on college basketball season, men and women. Let's start with Monday night's national championship game. You had that close game, Florida and Houston. I was watching it. A thriller. I will always remember Kelvin Sampson's face when this team couldn't get a shot off at the buzzer at the end, just kind of staring into space. I will forever remember that look. But the numbers, it was up 22% on CBS, that men's championship game versus last year. Obviously, the 2024 game that was UConn-Purdue was on those Turner Sports, TNT Sports networks, True TV, TBS, TNT. So it was going to be up, but good to see it getting back over around 18 million viewers. That'll probably put it in contention for some of those most watched telecasts of the year. But the men's tournament on the whole for CBS and TNT Sports, you got to consider it a victory, up around 3% from last year's event. That tournament was also up 3%, so 2 straight years of growth for the men's event. Big wins for those two media companies.
And there's the buzzer. It's an even dozen for Gino Auriemma and Connecticut. The final page in the Book of Beckers is title number 12 for UConn.
On the women's side, on Sunday afternoon, you had UConn's blowout victory over South Carolina. We knew this game was going to be down. But if you were going to consider it a success, how much of a drop was it going to be from that South Carolina-Iowa Caitlin Clark-driven game last year? And it was precipitous. Not a high dive. It was a cliff dive of a drop, down around 54%. And it was also down 14% from LSU-Iowa 2 years ago. So really kind of came back to earth. But you have to give them their props. It was the third best women's championship game since ESPN acquired rights back in 1996. So it came back to earth a little bit, but still well above anything that ESPN had from 1996 through around 2022. None of those championship games had gotten over 6 million viewers. But let's think about next season, okay? You have Juju Watkins probably going to be out for the season. I think that this championship number could go even lower next year. It's back maybe even closer to 7 million, under 8 million, regardless of who is going to be playing. They have to develop some more stars, some more household names to drive that number. And another thing to drive the number, I think it's time to take it off of that afternoon window. You had a lot of sports competition in that mid-afternoon window. Put this thing in prime time where it belongs, like the rest of some other NCAA championships. If the men are playing in prime time, I see no reason that it can't also air on Sunday night if it's drawing 8.5 million viewers, which is a really solid number. Now, I understand ABC has American Idol in the primetime slot, but if it is that important of a game, let's give it this window in primetime.
And the first winners ever, Big Red, champions of the college basketball crowd.
Another interesting angle to the end of college basketball season were 2 tournaments that kind of went up against one another. I'm talking about the College Basketball Crown that was airing on Fox Sports Networks. It was organized in conjunction with AEG that was out in Vegas. And then you had the NIT. And we saw what the numbers came in the final. Fox had that championship game, Nebraska, Central Florida, Sunday afternoon. I thought if they hit a little bit over 500,000 viewers, that would have been a success. This thing drew over 800,000 viewers. You have to consider that first game a real success. And for the complete tournament, that College Basketball Crown, the 1-week tournament, was around 20% higher than what the NIT was able to draw on ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPNU. So this first season did show that there is sort of an audience there for that College Basketball Crown that Fox sought to organize, at least on TV. Well, let's switch from the hard court to the golf course. This past weekend, we had the first broadcast TV battle, the PGA Tour, that was on NBC versus LIV Golf, its first Fox broadcast window.
All 3 players missing the fairway, but this is really flyer territory, downwind. That's terrific shot.
Wasn't much of a competition. Valero Texas Open beat the event in Miami, that LIV event, by around 260% on Sunday. It was LIV's best audience to date, but still under 500,000 viewers on Fox for that Sunday window. I know there was a lot of competition going on Sunday afternoon, but if you're LIV, I think you really wanted to see that final round get over 500,000 viewers. Didn't quite get there. Had a strong leaderboard, so you had everything kind of lined up, all the promotion that was going into that. So I think it's a little short of what they probably wanted to get for that Sunday window. But we got the Masters coming up. Sunday, I think you got to get over 10 million viewers if you're CBS. You had Scottie Scheffler, one of those popular golfers, in the world, winning last year. If you can get Rory in contention, I think that gets you over 10 million viewers. That's the mark. If you're CBS, you got to be looking for coming out of the Masters on Sunday afternoon. My colleague Tom Friend had a really interesting piece in SBJ this week about how Main Street Sports, those FanDuel sports networks, have extended what was a soft deadline of April 1st for an extension on 5 teams. We're talking about the Hawks, the Cavaliers, the Heat, Timberwolves, and the Bucks, to extend to potentially continue on those regional sports networks next season. And he thinks that kind of signals that they're going to do that and not maybe go with their own media strategy like some other teams have tried, going over the air or just to streaming. Everyone kind of trying to figure that landscape out. But it also gets back to how the NBA's national media situation is incredibly more lucrative for these teams in spite of them losing some of their RSN dollars. When this new media deal kicks in for the NBA, and Tom has reported on this, it's going to be around $40 million more per team for that national deal when that starts next season. That's huge. That's essentially what a lot of these teams were making per season on their RSN deals. So if you're thinking about it as a sport, like the NBA is not impacted as much by the RSN craziness as much as particularly Major League Baseball, which is why it's so important for Rob Manfred and Major League Baseball to figure out that local situation, because they're not getting as much in those media dollars on the national side. We've talked a lot about ESPN opting out. Those dollars are not going to be there, so very important to figure out the local side. All right, before we get to our interview, some quick hitters to wrap things up. It wouldn't be any sort of news podcast if we didn't talk about President Trump's tariffs. All right, so how are they impacting media deals? Heading into this new administration, everybody was talking about how this administration would be, better for potential M&A, what Warner Brothers Discovery might do, what CBS might do. Now, with these tariffs, it's going to be tough to make a deal. If you don't know what tariffs are going to do, and maybe the value of your company is going up and down with the stock market, it's not a good environment for M&A. So a lot of those are probably on ice for now and into the short-term future at least. A big shout out to the Golden State Valkyries, who signed a local deal with CBS Bay Area for their debut season in the WNBA. Why is this important? They are now one of only 6 WNBA clubs that are going to be receiving a local media rights fee this season. That kind of puts you above what the rest of your competition is getting. Haven't even played a game yet. Another big business win for the Valkyries. And finally, if you haven't read it already, my colleague Rachel Axon had a magnificent profile in SBJ this week on longtime ESPN executive Carol Stiff, what she meant for college basketball in particular on that network. Definitely give that a read if you have not done so already. Well, this week in sports media history, we're talking about 1992, April 6th to be precise, the first regular season game at Camden Yards. The Baltimore Orioles took down the Cleveland Indians 2-0. Whenever you're watching a Major League Baseball game on TV these days and you're looking at some of the beautiful parks out there, I'm talking about PNC in Pittsburgh. I'm talking about Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. I'm talking about out in San Francisco with Oracle, or San Diego with Petco Park. Camden Yards started this, so anytime a broadcaster is talking about, this beautiful ballpark that you get to play in, that was started by Camden Yards. They look magnificent on television, and it was a revolution for the way ballparks did appear. And who won that first Orioles game at Camden Yards? It was pitcher Rick Sutcliffe, who is now an analyst on Marquee Sports Network for the Cubs.